Welcome Ian Harper, who's the IOSH President-elect, who's really going to be speaking about communicating the safety message. And some of the people I've spoke to this evening, I've mentioned to a couple of people, but it's interesting really because I've got a kind of recurring theme from a few people I've spoke to, and that recurring theme was, well, I want to be able to communicate better with scaffolders. So that's I think we can all understand that, and apologies to the construction experts with Philip looking at me there, but I think we can all understand that challenge. But I think, you know, that's a small niche, isn't it? And Ian's going to give us this trip really through the different aspects of communication in safety, safety management, and how simple misunderstandings and how they can occur, and make sure that we get that right message out there. Ian's been an IOSH member for 15 years, officially became President-elect at the Networks Conference in November last year, and he sat on council for 5 years and is also on the Networks Committee. So I'm going to hand over to Ian.
Thank you very much. See, you shouldn't sit at the back, Phil, you sort of need it at the front. That's a long walk for you. Anyway, good evening. Thanks for inviting me here today to speak. I do enjoy getting out and speaking and communicating the safety message. But before I do, I just want to share a little story with you. On the way up today, on the train, I got sent a paper which I was invited to read and have a little look at. And I believe you have a communications volunteer on the committee. Is this true? There must be one of you. Is this true? Is Mr. Burgess paying attention? Yeah. Who's that? Steve? Sorry. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, okay. So Steve is the communications. That's quite an interesting role as a volunteer, getting involved in things like that, because that's not a role that's common that I've seen in other parts of the institution. Having someone dedicated to communication, so hats off. Is he in the room today?
Yes, Steve works.
Is he got to pay attention? All right, sorry. So I just saw your name on a piece of paper. That was all I thought. That's quite weird. Someone dedicated to communication, probably the hardest thing we've got in the institution. Something that to be perfectly blunt, we really struggle with. And somebody actually takes the time to do it in their own time as well. Volunteering is a difficult thing at the best of times, and if you want to take on tough jobs like that and do it in your own time, then all credit to you. There's some other stuff on this bit of paper as well, because that came to me with lots of other information about work that Steve does and that he's been involved in the institution, and being a volunteer for quite a long while now. And it's really quite a tough thing to be a volunteer. You get to a point where you find that you think you're swimming in treacle, and it's really quite tough, and you sort of throw the towel in. That's what I do in the institution. I have little mood swings where I fall out of love with the institution, fall back in love with it. And it's down to people who do the volunteering work that keeps the institution alive. Oh, for those of you who don't know about volunteering, that is what the institution is really about. It's not about the people in the Grange, it's not about people in Leicester. It's about people who volunteer and make things happen and organise events such as this and do the work that volunteers do, that keep events like this going and gives you something back as members. So, an apology, because I'm not the President, but the President has sent something to Steve for the thanks for his work that he's done for the institution. And that is a President's Distinguished Service Award, which is not handed out to anybody. These are handed out to people who've shown exceptional service to the institution in the form of being a volunteer. And so, Steve, if you'd like to come up and accept your award on behalf of Mr. Briggs. We have an official photographer. We like to embarrass people when we're giving out awards such as this, and I've been on presidential training now, so you do it like that apparently. One more. Here, Chef, you can keep the smile. Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. And it's not the sort of thing that we give lightly. No one there, I don't think that's one. It's just random things that happen. The IOSH communication message isn't very good. The second apology I want to start with is that normally when you come to these things, I've got to apologise to Nigel because he kept emailing me saying, have you got an intro? Have you got a bio? Have you got something that I can tell the members about who you are and what you're doing and what you're talking about? And I kept looking at this email, thought I must respond to him, and I never did. And I kept doing it again, and I never did. And let you a little bit secret, I do it on purpose. Why? Because Nigel sort of annoys me. He keeps popping up at meetings all the time, and he's got this annoying little habit of sitting there, and while I'm thinking of something, and I'm thinking, that's quite important, Nigel's already said it. And he's already saying things in front of me, and he's popping up at lots of meetings now and collecting awards and getting involved in bits and pieces like that. And he's just one of these people. Who's that fella? That's that fella from London Met again. And it's something that I've always been following Nigel. We went on the media training together, which was a bit of a hoot, wasn't it? I've got the video here if anyone knows. Because I'm on it as well, and that is horrendous. No one will ever see those videos. Yours was it me who told to stop gurning? Or was it, yeah, it was not a pleasant experience to be in. But it is something that really resonates with me when talking to Nigel and the sort of communication, because he's a lot better and a lot quicker at it than I am. And being the chair of the branch, I like to sort of recognise chairs of branches as I arrive as well, because I think it's important to understand how difficult it is being a volunteer, but also how difficult it is being the chair of a branch. And also the success Nigel has had, because I also had a bit of paper with his name on it as well, which was signed by lots of people on the committee. And they used the word that Mr. Briggs really, really loves. Tim's very, very keen on mentoring. And what a lot of people have told me is Nigel's been a mentor to people professionally, and as a volunteer, and personally as well. And so that's why Mr. Briggs has also dispatched a Distinguished Service Award for you as well. So I can't compare it all about So it's your face and safety practitioner again, and in Connect magazine. No, I will shake left-handed. Yeah. Smile. One more. And now I can't see him. Thank you, Nigel.
I will apologise in advance then if my picture's in there twice next month. Because I think it's in for the research project as well. But the important thing is, I need you to support this, and we need to support what we're doing as an industry. That's enough of me, because, well, I'll be here all night.
You're eating up my time already. So thanks for that. And that's really, I don't make any bones about this. It's a very rare award that's not issued out to anybody. And it's to volunteers who've shown exceptional service to the institution. So thanks fellas. The other reason I didn't send him a biography myself is because I'm not very interested. Though I'm president-elect of the institution, that doesn't mean I'm some fantastic person in charge of health and safety for big companies. I've just got a little bit of experience which I'll go through as I'm going through my presentation. If it seems like a load of disjointed stuff that's thrown together, because that's what it is. I've got lots of little stories that I tell people about incidents that I've been involved in, and accidents and research and little bits and pieces, and these are all little stories I've put together over a pint with people in a pub. So it's a little bit ramshackle, but hopefully you'll get something out of it. There's a bit of background about me. I don't normally introduce myself as a health and safety professional. Most people who know me will know that. But today I will. I work in the insurance sector mainly as a consultant. And I get a broad range of organisations that I go and work with. Although mainly in the construction and utility sector, but I work in manufacturing different places as well. And I go and see lots of different things. I see organisations of all different types and sizes. I also see lots of organisations that are world class. And world class, to me, means people who are good at communication. It's one of the most simplest ways I could describe it. So we'll have a little trip through communication, but before I talk about communication, the first thing I want to start with is what I am not going to talk about, which is slide 2. Slide 2. Anyone know what that is? How about someone has a privileged education? Well done. Bonus points if you know who the fella is down the bottom here. That is King Nimrod. If you know the story of the Tower of Babel, King Nimrod, being the king of the earth at the time, decided that he wanted to exercise great power and wisdom, which he was going to get from God. He didn't like the idea of visiting God the normal way. Dying was a bit messy and awkward. So he decided he was going to do it a different way. He was going to visit God at breakfast time every day, get some wisdom off him, come back in time for lunch. So how do you actually achieve that? Well, what you need to do is build a big tower up into the heavens, above the cloud line. Reputed to be 7 kilometres tall, this tower. Genius, you can see, they started at sea level. Probably not the best place to start. I would have started on a hill somewhere. Now, the Almighty is not too keen on people arriving in heaven unannounced, so he's a bit concerned about it. So he decides to destroy the project. So how can he do this? He's got a number of tools at his disposal, the Almighty. He's got pestilence, famine, high winds, hurricanes, flood. He's got all these sorts of tools. But he decides to destroy the project in a slightly different, more subtle way. He makes it so that when one craftsman working on the project is talking to the craftsman next to him, they cannot understand what each other is saying. That's where the derogation of the word Babel comes from. And because the people who are working on the construction project can't talk to each other, the project, as in the painting, remains unfinished. And that neatly solves the problem if we're all descended from Adam and Eve. Why are there so many different languages? Well, because of this event. And everyone dispersed to the four corners of the earth, that's how we all speak different languages. Sort of makes sense. So when we talk about communication, one of the things I'm not going to talk about is different languages. That would mean taking on God, and I've only got 45 minutes. That's a slightly longer presentation. I did explain this to an HSE inspector once on site as an excuse of why my language skills weren't wider than they should be. It didn't really work. And also, I didn't really know what this picture was until about 4 years ago, which is a little bit odd because my brother bought it for me as a wedding present for me and the wife, and it hangs in my living room. I think it's some sort of ironic joke he was trying to make. So when we talk about communication, I'm not going to talk about language, that's a completely separate issue. But I'm going to talk about how we have miscommunication and how we can improve communication in other areas. So we'll talk about what we actually communicate for and what we're trying to do. I remember my old NEBOSH day. I did remember something when I'd done my NEBOSH exams years ago, and I think I remember the question about communication. I think it was designed, there was some sort of transmitter and some sort of receiver, I think. It looked like a radio type of question. And I think that's what it was. We'll transmit some information to somebody. I'm not too keen on that definition. My definition, I think, is a little bit more, if you like, based on the behaviour. My communication is to get someone to talk about and influence somebody else's behaviour by communication. So when we communicate to people, we influence their behaviour. And that can be for a wide variety of things. I'd like to influence you, so at least when you leave here, you think, oh, that Ian Harper, he's not a bad fella. He's all right. You might be entertained. I hope I get a few laughs out of you. And we'll try and give you a few things to take away into your workplace as well. So that's what I'm trying to do when I'm communicating. If we don't have a point to communication, then why do we do it? So there's got to be a point, there's got to be an end product. But a lot of communication, I've seen, we have lots of problems about preconceived ideas and how people understand what's being communicated to them, as well as the style and motivation. That's the big thing. Can I motivate you to do something? I thought you were all going, yes, Ian. There's something, no? Okay. Well, I'll keep going anyway. No one's nodded off yet, which is a good sign normally. But before we do that, we'll have a little think about how people actually communicate and where mistakes start to creep in. What does that say? I'll stop you before you fall into the trap too far. That is gobbledygook. But your brains are very powerful things, and you're trying to make sense of nonsense. Alright, so I've sort of trapped you a little bit because I've put words together which are very close to the phrase in the sentence. But already your brain's transferred it into something else. So when we, if you like, dispatching packets of information, sometimes people read things that aren't there. Or their brain's trying to give them the impression that there is something there. I do a lot of IOSH management safety courses, and one of the questions in there is, one of the things we do with people is say, read the question. How many times do I get people give the right answer to the wrong question, if that makes sense? And the advice I give to people is, if you get a question that has the word reasonable in it, as in define what is meant by the phrase reasonably, what's the next word after that word reasonably?
Practicable.
Foreseeable. Yeah, so immediately you're jumping ahead of yourself, but people do that. I'm the same as well. And so many people answer the question, what is reasonably foreseeable, with the answer time, cost, effort. Yeah. So sometimes we have to hold ourselves back and rein ourselves in a little bit. This is just a phrase on the screen. How many of these sentences are buried in big method statements and lots of wordy documents? But that's one way our brain tends to trip us up a little bit. I pulled this off the website 2010. I found it quite funny. this is a good example of how it manifests itself. That's a sign to be fair, it is pointing to Cotswold Airport. It's got a sort of nearly the right, well, it's got the right letters but not necessarily in the right order. But Nick Howard, the manager of the airport, the sign had been up for a couple of weeks before we received an email saying it was wrong, and I thought, my goodness, I drive past it every day. But to be fair, he's expecting to say something, and so his brain says, yeah, this is sort of close to what I'm expecting to see. So his brain makes a decision. So no great shakes, we're not got any disasters here, but already we're starting to get miscommunication around how we actually communicate with people. Some people are a little bit more verbal when we communicate. Films are flicks that are produced after years of personal effort and of unique knowledge, frankly, out of hard work. How many F's are in that sentence? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? There are 9. I think it's 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But sometimes when I give that question, if you're reading the document, people will pick out 9. If I tell you I'm going to read it out to you and ask you to count the F's, some people get 6. Why? Well, because when I get to the word of, it's a different sound. You're listening to films are flicks, so you're counting the sound of the F. When I get to of, people miss it. I won't embarrass you by asking you to put your hands up, but that's an experiment I try sometimes of how people misinterpret what's being said. It's especially important to someone like me. You might have noticed I've got a little bit of a funny accent. Has anyone noticed that? You're all extremely nice. People look at me there. Where's that fella from? Don't know if anyone knows where I'm from. Shout it out so I can hear.
Wiltshire.
No, everyone says that.
Norfolk.
Yes. I don't know why everyone thinks I come from Bristol. I have no idea. I come from Norfolk. I'm a Norfolk boy. That's quite important because one of the things I've learned as being the president-elect of the institution, and I'll let you into a few misconceptions that people have. People think that members of the institution write speeches for people like me and Tim. They don't. Okay, so they get quite nervous, especially when Tim and I speak, because we decide what we say and we say what we want. So the media team get a little bit excited about this because they're a little bit concerned about what people picks up and what we say, especially in meetings like this, in case we say something a little bit off kilter. But yeah, I can say what I like. Now, the normal process for this is actually having a speech, discussing it, having it written down, so the media team know what we're going to say before we say it. Except there's a bit of a problem with me because I'm not very good at writing speeches, so I tend to say them, which did avert a near disaster at the IOSH conference this year. Did anyone go to the IOSH conference? Yeah. Okay, so there's a few of you who went, and I introduced day 2. Now, because I don't write speeches, Mr. Walsh is very upset about this, and he said, I have to know what you're saying. Well, that's fine. I'll take you in a little room and I'll give you the speech. It's only a short 5-minute introduction to the day, and I gave an absolutely hilarious 10-minute speech. Yeah, guys? Oh, well, okay. It was an average speech, but there was a bit of a problem. There was a near disaster. Because one of the things I wanted to introduce myself in the speech, I wanted to introduce myself saying some of the things I do other than health and safety. It was going to lead up to a little bit of a story. And in that process, I was going to introduce myself as an apiarist. And as soon as I said that phrase, Tim suddenly sat bolt upright. And he go, what did you just say? I said, I'm an apiarist. Oh, he said, I thought you said you were a rapist. They go, no. But it's because of my Norfolk accent, suddenly he picked up on that. And if we'd done it the written way, he wouldn't have picked up on something that would have probably been very bad if you imagine the president-elect of the institution standing up and saying that and everyone misunderstanding what I was saying. Apiarist is beekeeper, for those of you who don't know. 7 minutes, 40 seconds, did you win the sweepstake? Okay, I was told to mention bees at a specific time in the presentation. So sometimes it's the difference in the written word and the sounds that we use. And it also goes much further with my accent, because I'm trying very, very hard to speak very, very clearly for you guys. I'm using my best accent, my professional telephone voice, as my mother would call it. If I start to just drift a little bit into Norfolk now, this is proper Norfolk. This is posh Norfolk. There is such a thing as posh Norfolk. It's not for a laugh, by the way, this is posh Norfolk. But a lot of people know I keep sheep as well. And when I start talking to other people who keep sheep, then I start talking country Norfolk. And country Norfolk is getting worse and worse and worse, even though I don't understand it. Boy, when you start talking country Norfolk. So I had to go and buy some sheep. a couple of years back, and I had one of the discussions with one of my colleagues, farm colleagues. I keep Hebridean sheep, black things. Lovely little sheep. I went to see one of my farming friends, and even I don't understand what they're saying. So we had a discussion. I said, I'm after some sheep. You know, how are you getting on with your sheep? I've got 26 sheep, boy. What? 26 sheep. But 3 of them died. All right, so you've got 26 sheep, 3 of them died, so you've got 23 sheep. No, boy, you've got 17. 17? No, what? 26 sheep, 3 of them died, 17. No, 26 sheep, 3 dies, 23. No, boy. 26 sheep, 20 sheep that are sick. Right, so, and I have these conversations with people, which is like really hard. He's got a really big beard as well. He's a beekeeper as well. Beekeepers all have beards apart from me. So I couldn't even see his lips move, and half the time I have no idea what the conversation's going on, which is especially where we all go out shooting together. So it's when you start putting those things together about misconception, understanding how we communicate, listening to the phrases, and then you throw in accents as well, it's no wonder that we get a lot of things wrong. And this is especially true when I started my career. I started in the railway industry. And when we first communicated, is anyone here from the railway industry? Yeah? And when I was in the railway industry about 20 years ago, conversations were a little bit sort of, especially on the track, taking possession was a little bit flamboyant, and you know, we were talking about each other's holidays and how you were getting on. It wasn't really very professional at all. And at that time we started to change the conversations that we were having. It was all a little bit loose, and very quickly we were having mistakes, especially where I didn't know where I was. I'm talking to someone else with a funny accent because I've been sent up to Newcastle. And I was, you know, there was all sorts of miscommunications going on, which started to lead to accidents. It was interesting because we took a lot of our lead then at those times from the aviation industry. It's a bit ironic because one of the ways I introduce myself is I am a bit of an enthusiastic pilot. I say enthusiastic because I'm not really a pilot. I play with the plane and the instructor says I'm getting better, but after 5 years he still has not let me alone with the aircraft. So I think this just going nowhere. This is me at Cambridge Airport. This is probably the most you'll ever see me in a plane. I don't really take off, I just taxi around a bit, and he says the weather's not good enough and I go back to them. And when we communicate in the aircraft, it's quite interesting because we have a different sets of phrases. We have bursts of information. This is Golf Sierra Echo, Hull Point Alpha, runway 23, ready for departure. And I've got a set phrase that I give that conveys information very quickly. And when I say that, I'm going to get one of 4 answers back. Golf Sierra Echo hold, Golf Sierra Echo line up on wait, Golf Sierra Echo return to parking, or Golf Sierra Echo clear for takeoff. Takeoff's a big word. We never use the word takeoff because people get excited if you give them the word takeoff in the wrong place. So I sort of know what the phrases I'm going to get back, but we do lots of things in aviation which are very good things, which I've actually taken and used a lot in my safety in day-to-day information. Because although it's critical information given very quickly, it's still good habits that I've picked up when I'm at work. Now, some of them are quite interesting. The phonetic alphabet, and I use this more than I'd possibly imagine before I learned it. When you think about it, a lot of letters are the same. B, C, D, E, G, T, V, Z. They all sound nearly the same. So when you're conveying information, no wonder at it we get lots of communication errors and problems when we use those sorts of words. So I'm a very fanatical phonetic alphabet person now. Especially when I'm on the phone to a call centre trying to get my insurance sorted out for my car. I've had lots of car problems recently, some of you may know. And I'm trying to get new insurance for another car that I've had to buy because so many of them are broken down. And you're on the phone and, can I have your name please, sir? It's Harper. Parker. No, not Parker. Harper. No, Parker. No, Harper. How do I get over this scenario? Hotel Alpha Romeo, Papa Echo Romeo. You'd be surprised how many people on the end of the phone suddenly, oh yeah, and it means something to them. I was in a place the other day though where they invented their own phonetic alphabet and someone was on the phone in reception. It was A for Amsterdam, B for Berlin, and Z for, and I was sitting there like a game, Zurich, yeah. What's the next one? So it's a little bit of a struggle sometimes, but it's a good habit to be in, to, again, pass information to people. And people tend not to get it wrong. The other thing that we do is what we call rebacks. Rebacks is good. How do you know if someone's got the right information? You get them to read it back to you. What do you think you've just heard? I had this one day when I actually did take off in this little airplane. They only let me fly around the airport and land it in. I said, I can't go anywhere. I've had too many problems near Stansted. So I took off and I came back to land, and there's 2 runways. Runway 23, and next to it is 23 what we call grass. The grass one is made of grass, the other one is made of asphalt. The other equally dim-witted student is me in the plane in front, panics a little bit and just dumps the plane on tarmac and wheels go flying everywhere, lots of sparks. The air traffic control says to me, Golshiaku, can you change to runway 23 grass? And so I just pressed the button and said to confirm. So she says it again, Golshiaku, change to 23 grass. Confirm. And I look at my instructor, what's the matter with her? He said to me, what do you think you've just heard? I've said, well, I thought she said change to runway 23 grass. Yeah, but she doesn't know what you think you've heard. So just tell her what you think you've heard. I go, well, is that right? I don't know, ask her. Girl, she reckon I'm changing to runway 23 grass. Great, now she's happy. Because at the moment, she's not entirely sure what I've actually heard or what I think I've heard. Because I'm in this little plane and I'm absolutely terrified of heights. I don't really know why I do it. And so I've got lots of things going on, and she just wants to make sure I've actually heard the right thing. So we do lots of things, we do readbacks, and it's important when we give information to people just to ask them, especially with critical stuff, and even when I'm doing method statement briefings, I'll say to people, well, you know, I want you to push the button and pull the lever. Yeah, all right. You know, they're normally on Facebook or on LinkedIn or something. And we just heard what I said, yeah, I've got it in you. Well, what did I tell you to do? Push the button and pull the lever. Right, so actually you were paying attention. And sometimes with that critical information, just ask people, what have I just told you? And in this world today where, you know, people are easily distracted by mobile phones and electronic gadgets and devices, I find it more and more increasingly important just for that one little thing. What are you going to do next? What have I just told you? Are you okay with what you're going to do? And using those little phrases just to make sure what I've told the people has actually got across. But the other thing aviation has taught me is how to listen. And it's very, very important when you're doing things like this is to listen. So whose job is it in this room to make you listen today? A lot of people say you've got to work hard to listen. It's not your job. It's my job to make this hopefully entertaining enough for you to listen. I hope you're thoroughly entertained so far. Yeah? Oh, do you want me to keep going? And it is important. I do a lot of public speaking organisations and clubs just to practice and keep my hand in. And I've done a lot of public speaking training about 20 odd years ago. I don't know if you think that's worth the 50 quid I paid for it at the time, but it was a 3-day course, so I thought that was good value for money. And sometimes when we talk to people and when we're doing presentations like this, you need to be engaging to get people to listen. The worst presentation I've ever seen was actually, it was a railway one. There was this Dutch fella came over and he was talking to us about the ergonomic layout of Dutch train cabs, with slide after slide after slide of Dutch train cabs. And I got a jab in the ribs. And the key point I got the jab in the ribs, this is not a word of a lie, when my colleague next to me said, I thought the dribble was going to hit your knee. And he said, I didn't want you to mess your suit up. So that's when I got the and the fact that my snoring was drowning out the speaker. I like to think it's not my fault. He needed to jazz his presentation up a little bit. Which made me think about how we do it. Now, in my first public speaking training, one of the things we did is a little think about who are the speakers who motivate you? Who are the speakers that you listen to? And why do you listen to them? Who stands in places like this, or even who you see on the television, who motivate people? Who can give a very long speech and you actually listen to it and hang on every word? This is one of the exercises we did in our public speaking course. And we were given post-it notes. There were 6 of us on the course, and we were given post-it notes, and we all had to write a name on the post-it note of someone who we thought was a fantastic speaker. You can shout some names out if you like. Who motivates you as a public speaker? See if you can guess the 3 names that I put on my post-it notes. Yeah, bear in mind this is about 20 years ago. Who's best public speakers in the world? Margaret Thatcher.
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King, yeah, another good one. Fantastic speech. Who?
Fidel Castro.
Fidel Castro. Yeah, I don't think he came up in the course, but yeah. What do you think of people like that? It did motivate a lot of people to action. Who else? Churchill. Yeah, of course, Churchill. Who else? Who? Alf Hitler. All right, well, moving swiftly on. So there's lots of names that we start. JFK was another one, and most of them were politicians, but they all had a number of things in common. So who did I pick? The first was Thatcher. And we analysed Thatcher about why we thought she was a good speaker. I don't mind admitting that my background from my father and my family is very labour orientated. My father was a serious union guy and shop steward and what have you, so it's quite unusual for me to pick Thatcher, considering my upbringing. But I think the thing I got from her is that when she spoke and when she gave her speeches, you could see people were actually listening and pay attention. Whether you agree with the policy or not is something slightly different, but we'll come back to Thatcher in a second. Who else did we say? Someone said Churchill. Why was Churchill a powerful speaker? I don't know if many people knew why he was such a powerful speaker. Because of his pauses. If you listen to Churchill's speeches, when you listen to him make a speech, he puts in lots of pauses. And the pauses for dramatic effect have just that. So two conviction politicians, and when we're in public speaking training, one of the things the guys do try and tell me is slow down here. I have slow written on one hand, down written on one hand when I'm giving big speeches to try and remind myself to slow down. But Churchill's a master of it, a very slow pace. Never in the field of human conflict has so much been owed by so many to so few. And when you put the pauses in, that gives it a little bit more gravitas, which is important when we are trying to communicate with people and giving them the impression that we do actually believe what we say. And that's how a conviction politician works, which is important because when we talk about health and safety, from the head of an organisation's health and safety, you at least want me to believe in zero accidents, or whatever the policy is, or behavioural safety programme, yeah? So many times I've seen people who are head of safety or a chief executive try and give a safety message, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, you don't believe a word that he's saying. Well, why? Because they don't sell it. Thatcher and Churchill do sell what they're saying. So, the last one. When we go around the course, we had Martin Luther King, we had JFK, we had loads of, we didn't have Fidel Castro, but we had loads of different people. But we got to 5 or 6 names in, and we all had a post-it note left. We all had a post-it note each. People know I'm a little bit mischievous, and I was thinking, you're not going to get this one, fella. And the guy sitting at the front of the room says, I've been doing this course for quite a long while, and we always get to the same point in this course, you're all left with one post-it note each. He said, and I think I know who you've got, and I think you've all put down the same person, which is a little bit odd, because I don't think you've even seen this person give an entire speech. You've only seen snippets. But also, if you did, I don't think you'd understand a word that he says anyway, because he speaks in German. So the final one we all put down was Adolf Hitler. And for the same reasons, I just want to make this clear, we're not recording this. So he did say about recording stuff. We're not recording this, though. Male life. It is. Well, we'll have some editing later. Now, it is, again, a conviction politician. Was the pauses, the stops in between, which got people to listen. And Hitler did have an interesting trait as well, which is something that I've been interested in as well. He never used to speak for 3 or 4 minutes when he moved to the lectern. He would wait. He would wait until people were listening before he would speak. I guess you've got the added advantage if you don't listen to him, you'll get shot. But there are other similar traits with other people as well who come to lecterns and will stop and will say, I'm ready to speak, but I'm not going to start. I'm not going to talk over you. I'm going to wait. And when the hubbub has died down in the room, then I will start my presentation. Interestingly, with communication as well, there's another facet to communication. Most communication is non-verbal, as we all know. And Hitler's non-verbal communication is quite interesting because he only ever wore his corporal's uniform. He only had one eye crossed. Why? Well, he was quite comfortable and secure in his position that everybody knew he was in charge. When you look at the rest of the Germans, I was actually at the RAF museum in somewhere northwest London. They got all Goering's medals on display. Interesting. I don't know if people know this, but 90% of the medals he had, he bought and awarded to himself. Yeah? So he's got lots of medals on, so when he's parading about in his white uniform with his staffs and rods, and he's just trying to give an impression of power, just because he was so insecure. And so people can pick up immediately when people are, before they even start to speak, we're already communicating. I haven't put a tie on, so you can see I'm reasonably comfortable in this audience. I hope you're all friendly. If you're a different audience, I might have put a tie on. I know I was given Nigel awards, so I had to shave as well. Okay, so you can hopefully see I'm a little bit respectful, but not, I'm a little bit more comfortable because I haven't got a tie on. I was comfortable until I was told it didn't record it. But So it's one of those things when you see people, sometimes if they overdress or they power dress, that shows their insecurity, where some other people are happy to dress down, they're normally more confident. Here's a classic example. One of these people is confident in being an idiot because he's in charge, and the other one has got some problems with his, he had problems. But you can see what he's trying to do there, he's trying to convey a message. But going back to Thatcher, one of the things Thatcher was very interested in, or why I find it so fascinating and interesting, is what Thatcher used to do when she used to give her speeches. If you're ever trying to convince somebody of something and you're trying to give a speech or do some public speaking, is two things. Thatcher would not talk over you. She would wait until you are listening. And when you are listening, then she would talk. And if that means she had to shut up for a few minutes, she would. And she would wait. You watch politicians today, it's very difficult. They're all talking over each other and shouting, so get a bit excited. And Thatcher was a little bit more the opposite. She would wait. I'll wait until I know you are listening. And when you're listening and when you're ready to receive my communication, then I will send you. I see too much nowadays of people sending information while other people are not paying attention. I don't know whether I'm just sort of super polite. I don't like butting into other people's conversations. I like to stand back a little bit. But I see so much information get lost because people are trying to have too many conversations at once. The other thing that Thatcher does is she does things in threes. All good politicians, if you're trying to sell something, you do it in threes. Education, education, education. Whose mantra was that? Tony Blair. So we remember that, and all told, 3 words, or the same word 3 times. It wasn't education and education. It was education, education, education. And how did he deliver it?
The pause.
Yeah? Education, education, education. And David Cameron is very much like that as well, and so is Barack Obama. And they'll do it in threes. The interesting thing about Thatcher is, when you watch politicians when they deliver stuff in threes, Thatcher didn't do it like that. Thatcher had a more subtle approach, and we never really realised it until the guy doing the course actually showed us the video. And he referred to it as the Thatcher headbutt. Now, I was a little bit perturbed by this, so we're going to show you the video that he showed me on the course. 2 things. Firstly, she is not going to give any information until she's sure that the person she's speaking to is ready to receive it. Then she will give it. And she's got a little bit of a problem, because she's going to give some information in a second, but she can't give any details. It's about the sinking of the Belgrano. In a nutshell, the Belgrano was steaming away from the Falkland Islands at the time, but it had been tracked by a submarine in shallow water. The reason it was steaming away is because it was in deep water. As soon as it changed direction to come behind the task force would have been attacked on 2 sides. The nuclear submarine tracking her could not operate in shallow waters if she turned. Thatcher can't really talk about the details of our operational capability of our naval fleet, so she does the next best thing. She's a bit of a rugby position, so she just goes for conviction. Okay, so she's going to make a point that she thinks is the right thing to do. But when she does it, she's going to do it in threes. And when she does it and gives the information, you'll see the Thatcher headbutt, and she'll be headbutting that information home. Make sure you absolutely got it. But it's very subtle, but it's very effective. And being on someone else's computer, I hope this will work.
What I know, Mr. Frost, is that ministers have given the information in the House of Commons. When they came and it said that one thing was not correct, I was the first to say, right, give the correct information. And the correct and deadly accurate information was given. But I do not spend my days prowling round the pigeonholes of the Minister of Defence looking at the precise course of action.
No.
One moment. The
And Woodrow White says you
moment.
only respect people who come
One
into power.
moment.
Yes.
That ship was a danger to our boys. That's why that ship was sunk. I know it was right to sink her, and I would do the same again.
So you can see how it's quite powerful. I knew it was right to sink her and I'd do it again. Doesn't really have much conviction. So we put the pause in it. I knew it was right to sink her, and I would do the same again. You believe me a little bit more now? And then we'll throw the headbutt in. I knew it was right to sink her, and I would do the same again. So you are in no doubt that, if anything else, I believe what I'm saying is true. Yeah? Do you all agree with me? Just so I know I'm going in the right direction, or are you expecting a lifted presentation or something? But it's quite powerful, because when I see people, I saw a guy a few months ago who was trying to deliver a behavioural safety program. He's trying to launch it to his organisation. And he got to the end of it, the big crescendo, and I think, right, go on my friend, give it the Thatcher headbutt or the Tony Blair, 1, 2, 3. And he got to the end of it and he said, I don't want any accidents on this project. Are you all with me? And I went, yeah. But he was the chief executive, so we all had to sort of pretend we agreed. But the wave and the mood in the room was such that people didn't really deal with it. And we had a little discussion about it later. I said, I don't think you really sold it. I think there's a big crescendo, you talk about it for 45 minutes, but if anything else, when we get to the end, pow, yeah, this guy actually means what he says. So we had a little discussion about it. So how can we change that phrase? Well, what do we want? Well, 0 accidents and injuries. Okay, we need 3. Can we think of something else? Ill health. Yeah, so we've got 3. So we can have 0 accidents, injuries and ill health on this site. On this site. Excellent. Got two sets of 3. Yeah, so once we've got 2 sets of 3, we're just about there. We just need to add in some pauses and the headbutt. Because it's difficult to do that sometimes. I can do that when I'm standing up. I'll be very animated and move about. I might do this. But if I'm sitting down in the meeting, sometimes the only thing that can move is the headbutt. Or bang my finger on the tail, I'm really cross. And the frown, a Harper frown. But in a meeting, I'm trying to be pleasant but forceful. I want 0 accidents, incidents and ill health on this site. Are you more convinced?
Yes.
You're a bit more roused. I can do it again, but time is short. But when you're trying to convince somebody, you need to convince them that you're convinced as well. You can't sell something that you don't believe. Okay? So the power of 3 is really, really powerful. And add it with a little bit of body language. The little Thatcher headbutt is a lot more powerful than the Tony Blair 1, 2, 3. But one of the problems we do have with doing that is you've got to pick the right words. 0 accidents, incidents and ill health. They're good words. I know what they mean. But sometimes we use the wrong language. We use words that I don't understand what they mean. And when I don't understand what they mean, I get into all sorts of difficulties.
It was the one question today to which I could give a clear, simple, straightforward, honest answer.
Yes. Unfortunately, although the answer was indeed clear, simple and straightforward, there is some difficulty in justifiably assigning to it the 4th of the epithets you applied to the statement. Inasmuch as the precise correlation between the information you communicated and the facts insofar as they can be determined and demonstrated is such as to cause epistemological problems of sufficient magnitude as to lay upon the logical and semantic resources of the English language so heavier burden than they can reasonably be expected to bear.
Epistemological? What are you talking about?
You told a lie.
I find that I just wish that series would come back. That's so fantastic. But that's sometimes used on purpose with people who want to convey the truth. So why say you told a lie when a good civil servant will spend 3 minutes talking about a subject you've got no idea what they've said? And sometimes people do that on purpose, but sometimes we do it ourselves and we don't even know that we're actually doing it. These are things that I call weasel words. These are words that we use that don't really mean anything. I was helping someone write a method statement the other day and I actually put in a weasel word. And these are words that don't really have a meaning. I was talking to a guy who's in an engineering workshop. I just saying, well, how do you put this in? This? He said, oh, I get it up and I just sort of give it a little bit of a wiggle and then slide it in. Great. So when we wrote the method statement, it said, you bring it up to the work face and then you manipulate it and then you put it in. And he came back, what's this word? I goes, manipulate. What does that mean? I go, you give it a bit of a wiggle. And I thought to myself, he's told me how to do it, and I've used a completely different word that he then doesn't understand to tell him how to do his job. So already the communication's gone wrong because I'm using words that people don't understand. But further than that, I use words that people think they understand, but they don't really. The worst of which, they come up, are some of the obvious ones. Education, justice, security, opinion. These are classic examples of weasel words. And when you're talking to someone in the future, just think about the words you use. We all believe in justice, don't we? Yeah? Yeah? So if we brought back the death penalty, that'd be a good thing, yeah?
No.
Now we start to have a little bit of a disagreement. But we all believe in justice. And the problem with that is that's the way politicians usually speak. Well, you know, who won't disagree with having better justice or better education system? What we disagree with is how we achieve that. And the worst we's of words of all, unfortunately, are in most of our job titles. Health and safety. What does that actually mean? It means different things to different people. That's a horrible phrase. I really dislike the word health and safety. I'll try and get it out of IOSH's title if I could get the marketing department convinced that we could change it to something else. But that means different things to different people. After all, you know, if I'm driving about on my motorbike, I think it's acceptable to do exactly on the speed limit. And some people might think it's not acceptable. We have a different view and opinion. We both believe in safety, but we have a different opinion of what safety actually looks like. So that's when we start having arguments. And so I tend not to use the word health and safety at all in my professional day-to-day activities. I don't say we need better health and safety. I'll say phrases like, we need fewer accidents, we need 0 accidents. So when we communicate with people, think about the words that we use. The biggest word is opinion. Are you entitled to your opinion?
Yes.
No. The buttons on here are what colour?
Red and green.
Red and green. Well, in my opinion, they're blue. Am I entitled to my opinion? Not when there's facts about it. Yeah? And I get a lot of this where people are like, well, in my opinion, I don't care what your opinion is. They're red and they're green. So, in fact, you're not entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion when there's no hard evidence and fact, then you can have an opinion. An opinion is a guess. But in the face of facts, they fold away. So they're the sort of phrases that lead to arguments. And we have to be very careful about the words that we use that we don't inflame situations. And I always look to the real experts in communication, because whenever I have a discussion about health and safety, you know what it's like, it turns out I'm the health and safety advisor, and you just see the brick wall go up and I go, oh. So you have to use different phrases and different words. And I have different things that I use with people. I normally use biscuits. Yeah, my name's Ian Harper. Would you like a biscuit? Oh, and I'm a safety advisor as well. That's a little bit weird. But immediately they're a little bit happy and a little bit scared at the same time. But at least the shutters haven't gone up and they've just stopped work and tried to deflect into something else. I'm always interested in enhancing communication. These objects, these are fascinating. Dad gets your products a special kind of white. Kind of white. Brilliant white. I didn't know. I just thought white was white, but brilliant white. Used to be a bluey white. Now it's a brilliant white. And apparently you can wash down to 40 degrees centigrade as well, which is amazing. This product over here, I know cleans down to squeak. It does twice as many dishes as somebody else. I know a woman called Nanette Newman. Apparently, I've never heard of this woman before, but she used to advertise the product. I know loads and loads about this sort of product, which is amazing because in my male chauvinistic world, I don't use either of these products in my house. But I seem to know quite a lot about them, which is a little bit odd. Well, why do I know? Because people keep bombarding me with information about these products. We dress it up, we make it look quite sexy as well. As I'm wondering about the supermarket, I can't help but have my eye drawn to this, you know, colourful stuff and all these wonderful things and the way it's been marketed and positioned right in my eye line. I mean, ad breaks in Coronation Street, which I did watch, and conveying information to me all the time. But what do I really need information on? I need information on the Health and Safety at Work Act. Has anyone actually read it? It's not a riveting read. And even though it's directly proportional to the amount of money I earn, so I have to pay quite a lot of attention to it, I really find it a little bit tedious to go through it. Even more so when I'm looking at organisations and companies, when I'm looking at their systems and procedures, it's the same stuff but even more tedious. So no wonder at it when I spend a lot of my time working in insurance that we end up with the same question time and time again. Did anyone actually read this document? And the answer usually being no. So when we're using the written word as well, try and think of a way of jazzing it up, slimming it down, making it a little bit more sexy, a little bit more interesting. Because there's nothing that can't be changed and made a little bit more interesting. The experts at this is the one thing that you possibly think you wouldn't change, which has in the recent past been changed quite a lot in aviation safety, which is the in-flight briefings. New Zealand Air are brilliant at it. I can't show you the one full of naked people. I thought it was a stretch too far. So have a look at this one.
Kia ora, and welcome aboard this Air New Zealand flight.
Before we take off, we'd like to run you through a few in-flight safety exercises.
The only way is out. Hi everybody. In the next 3 minutes we're gonna work hard, work out, and get you fit to fly. Let's go! First let's stretch it out and lose that baggage. Stretch it up to the overhead locker under the seat in front of you. Stretch and slide. Yeah, you're a giraffe. Now it's seatbelt time. When the seatbelt sign comes on, buckle it in. Grab, click, pull. Grab, click, pull. Nice and snug, low across the hips, but not too tight. And to undo your belt, just lift the flap. No sweat. Remember, you must follow crew instructions and light a sign. If your oxygen mask drops down, it's time to take a breather. Pull it down over your nose and mouth, pull the elastic tight, and then breathe normally. And remember, put your mask on first before you help others. Don't worry if the bag's feeling a little flat. The oxygen will flow automatically. Okay, now for the recommended brace positions. If there's an emergency during takeoff or landing, if you can reach, just lean and brace on the seat in front of you. Or, this is one of my favorites, it's called the duck. Flat feet, elbows outside your thighs, hands on your head, and duck on down. Now let's...
I'm going to leave there because it just gets crazier and crazier as it goes in. But it's interesting that one of the things that we think is some communication that we can't possibly change because it's written as sort of legislation, you can actually change it. And it's one of the things that, you know, if we've all been on planes, there's in-flight briefings, and I fly quite a lot now, and I look at other people in the plane and not paying attention. And just my eyes are drawn to it, even though I fly a fair amount. I'm still fascinated by it, and I just can't help but watch it and find it funny. But the best bit of advice I've ever had in public speaking is always try and get people laughing. If you can get people amused and interested and laughing, and while their mouths are open, you can slip in a little bit of food for thought. So there's nothing that you can't change. There's not a piece of communication that you can't alter. But the best thing to do is to try and do something different. If it hasn't been working before, try and do something a little bit different. There's nothing that can't be altered, nothing that can't be better, and make communication better. That's me done. Thanks for listening. I will just say though, I'm not a communication expert. This is just a load of stuff, as you probably recognise, that I've just come across. So I don't profess to be an expert in any of the subjects. But I'm quite happy to take any questions or any questions relating to IOSH generally. Hopefully you're going to invite me back when I'm president. Is that going to happen? No? Okay. So I'm not, although, you know, I'm talking about something different. If you want to hit me with other IOSH questions, then fine, I'll try and answer them as best I can. There's a 5 second, someone put their hand up now, I thought I was going to get away with it.
Is that me? Hi, Ben. That was really good, by the way, thank you very much. Oh, so I'm a registered blind person, so I just thought I'd check with the question with regards to disability and the support there is available from IOSH, such as myself, wanting to get the regular, get the membership rights as well. So I'd just like to be informed for myself.
So the question's about disability for Irish women. To be honest, I think we're not fantastic about recognising people with disabilities, although the branches are trying to do more and more about it. I think that might sound a bit of a cop-out, but I think I'd like more people to be involved, such as yourself, and that's something that I think we need to discuss better in the institution. About how we help and support people, but what we need for that is for people to tell us what help and support that they need. That sounds a bit of a cop-out because we should know, but in reality I think we struggle a little bit in the institution. We get bogged down by our own administration. So I think the answer to that is I'd like some more support and guidance from people like yourself about exactly what you're saying. It's interesting about, I think, how certain branches facilitate people. We do facilitate a lot of people in the East Anglia branch, which, you know, we have to have people's notification about who's attending and what have you. So we try and do things locally at a local level, which is very good. But I don't think we do anything joined up. If that answers the question.
I guess what...
Sorry, no, carry on.
I guess what I would then want to know is how can I would have been involved? What can we put in place, basically? Give the opportunity. I'm waiting for a query for these things to brick wall.
I'm thinking, because one thing groups Nigel and I both sit on is the networks group. So we oversee in the institution how the networks are managed. So I assume the most interaction you'll probably have is with the branch. So maybe that's something perhaps that if we look at perhaps how much guidance do we give to branches, to volunteers to understand the issue and what we need to do and help facilitate, then maybe that's something that we should give other people the opportunity with. So perhaps that's something Nigel and I'll take away in how we facilitate and use your experience and knowledge and assistance that you can give. Because I'm just thinking this off the top of my head now about how we can do it. But I think you're right, I think we do need something to be a little bit ad hoc about how we approach it. I'll give you more details before you leave, so don't run off, I'll keep an eye on you, and then we'll see if we can have some communication about what you can give us. Yeah, if that makes sense. Sorry, another question?
On the subject of communication, if you're going to do a toolbox talk on a very dry subject of safety and managing your audience, what's your type of approach in terms of doing a communication or a toolbox talk?
Most of the toolbox talks I do, it's a bit of a... People who know me know I've got a slightly self-deprecating manner. Well, not slowly, I'm self-deprecating. In that, especially when it's a subject I feel is very dry and I feel very nervous about public speaking. It might not look it to you, but I'm absolutely terrified and I think my heart's got to burst out of my chest any second. So I do worry about it quite a lot, and especially if that's an ad hoc thing. Two things: practice, practice, practice. Even if it's a simple toolbox talk, do you know your first and last sentences in the toolbox talk? And that's crucial for any speaking you do to any groups. It's ironic, the bigger the group, the easier it is for me to speak to them. The smaller the group, I'm terrified. Alright, so you get 700 people in a room, I'll ask for questions, I know I'll get none. Yeah, and I can sort of blunder my way through it. When you get a smaller group, you know they're going to be firing questions at you all the time. But the other thing with this, my self-deprecating manner, I normally approach them saying, I'm not entirely sure how does this all work. Get them to start talking about it, and then that's where I start putting in my little bit of it. Are you sure that's right? I thought we had to do it a different way and start as a conversation rather than a toolbox talk. I think it's very difficult as well to go off scripts. I don't know how many of your organisations have scripts for things like toolbox talks. I find them useful as in pointers, but then you get dragged into reading them. A bit like PowerPoint, you end up reading them. So I read it and I don't take notes with me. Yeah? So I'm having to make myself work a lot harder. If I take a paper out with me, then I end up reading the paper, which is not communication, that's preaching. And it doesn't work. Does that make sense?
Just to come back on that point about toolbox talks, I give quite a few, and one thing I would recommend is building rapport wherever possible. As a woman going onto construction sites, there's an expectation, maybe there's a brick wall that goes up, so it's quite easy for me to immediately knock that down. I do a lot of neurolinguistics as well, and one thing I would recommend for women is to lower their voice, if at all possible. Some women have naturally high voices, and I think if you can take your voice down, you introduce gravitas, and you're taken more seriously because you sound a bit more like a man. It's wrong, but it's true.
The other thing I do, I shouldn't really say, we're not recording now, can I be politically incorrect? Yeah, right, lovely.